For life.
Oh yeah!
Alright, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are doing another tier list. This time covering every European champion ever. Every WWF and WWE European champion ever. Now, this is a warning. This is a disclaimer. This is only going to be ranking these guys, how they fall as far as the European Championship, being a European champion, and what they did during their reigns, and whether they damaged the value of the title or, greatly increased the value of the title. We're going to start off with the first champ and with the last. This is all in chronological order. Alright, first up, Bulldog. First champ, and he had the longest reign. Absolute legend, rest in peace, but only 5 defenses, largely spread apart in that first reign. None of those were won cleanly. He did have a second reign. It was about a month and a half long in late 1999, but even then only one successful defense against Godfather on an episode of SmackDown. Nonetheless, again, legend. First champ, multiple reigns, most days held for the championship, and very heavily correlated with the European title. Bulldog is an A tier. Next up is Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels, HBK, in over 2 months, only 3 title defenses, no clean finishes, and in my opinion, he disgraced the title, dropping it purposely to Triple H. I gotta go D tier for HBK. I'm sorry to any Shawn Michaels fans, wasn't a good European champion. Next up is Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H. First reign, he wasn't even in a match for it. He just held it for a month. He didn't even lose the belt. It was Goldust dressed as him, acting as a sub, when the next champ, won the title. His second reign wasn't quite as lame. He defended it twice against Owen Hart. One of those even being the memorable match at Unforgiven 98 with China hanging above the ring in a cage. Still, for the 4 months held, he was pretty inactive, and I gotta put Hunter in the C tier. Alright. Next champ is Owen Hart. Owen had a solid near 2-month run with the title. Rest in peace, King Hearts. Defeated several talents, including wins on Raw and Shotgun Saturday Night. Owen is a very memorable European champion, and I've got to go A tier. Next up, D'Lo Brown. D'Lo, he's tied at the most number of reigns with the title and sits near the top in number of days held. He was a defending champ, had matches on Raw, SmackDown, and Heat with matches with various people. Title on the line. When I think of D'Lo, I think of the European title, and vice versa. I know I'm not alone in that, right? So, for that, I have to go S tier for D'Lo Brown. And well-deserved S tier. But definitely the best run of his career with that European title. Or runs. He had several. 4, I think. X-Pac, first run was almost non-existent, but the second one was one of the more impressive runs with the European title from anyone. I'm sure any fan remembers that second run of X-Pac with the belt when they think of the European title, because he was holding it, what I feel was he's holding that belt at the absolute hottest time in the business. X-Pac A tier. It's right up there, man. Shane McMahon, okay. Somehow Shane won the title from X-Pac in a tag team match. Why it was on the line and won, I don't know. I guess ask Russo. His defenses include a win over Gilbert and 2 that he managed to squeeze out against former champ X-Pac. But it's the way his reign ended that tarnishes his run and the title itself. He retired as champ. He, if you believe kayfabe, carried the belt around in his bag dormant for months, and then Midian went through his stuff, found the belt, and asked him for it. Shane cared so little about the European title, he gave it to him. There you go. More Vince Russo magic. Shane McMahon is a D tier European champion. One of the worst. Absolute worst. Next up is Mideon. The trash that he gave it to. If you're going to reintroduce the European title, why in God's name do you give it to Mideon, for crying out loud? Thankfully, this was short, not short enough for some reason. They even gave him a win over Al Snow. Why? I don't know, man. Anyways, it's D tier where you go and where you belong, Mideon. Jeff Jarrett. Okay, Jeff Jarrett defeated D'Lo in a title for title match. And then he just gave the damn title away the next night to Mark Henry as a thank you for helping him win. Jarrett, he was already Intercontinental Champ, and he saw the poor European strap as worthless as Vince Russo continued to degrade this title. As far as European champions go, Double J is D tier. A lot of weak champions you can see in the early days of this belt. They were not taking it seriously. It gets better though. It starts getting better. Mark Henry, Sexual Chocolate, held the strap a little over a month with a very meh reign, I would call it. He defended the title twice. Only one of those finishes was a clean win, and Mark Henry is a C tier European champion. Val Venus. Val Venus, in the almost 2 months he was Euro champion, he went on somewhat of a tear through Raw, Heat, and Jacked, defending the strap. He even beat Edge on an episode of Raw. One of, if not the strongest single runs with the belt yet. A tier. Alright, Kurt Angle. One of the greatest WWE champions of all time, in my opinion. But his one European title run, not that great. A handful of defenses, Angle retaining the majority through cowardly heel actions. It was entertaining, like everything Kurt was doing back then, and solid enough. I gotta put Kurt Angle in B tier. If this was WWE Championship, Kurt would probably be in the A, if not even the S. Jericho defeated Angle in a Two Falls triple threat match at WrestleMania 2000. Also included Chris Benoit. Jericho's tied for one of the shortest reigns ever, however, at less than a day, because the very next night on Raw, Eddie Guerrero defeated Jericho for the belt. Very short reign, but still produced 2 bangers, including Jericho's title win being at Mania, which is huge. So, I think it's safe to put Jericho in B tier, right beside Angle. Speaking of Eddie G, he held the European title twice. His first run with the belt was one of the longest reigns at 3 months. It came in the midst of the Latino heat stuff with China too, and in my opinion, he's not only an absolute legend, but a legendary European champ. Eddie G is S tier. Perry Saturn got his one and only European title win off of his pal and former Radical stablemate Guerrero at Fully Loaded 2000. He held the belt a bit over a month in his only run with a few solid defenses. Saturn's got to go C tier. Yep. Not a humongous Saturn fan. He did have peak Terry Runnels managing him here though during his run, which almost pushes him to a B. But Saturn's got to he's got to hang out over there in C tier. Now, Al Snow. If you played much SmackDown 2 on PlayStation 1 like I did, Al is one of those more synonymous names with the European title, as he was the default champ on the game. His reign was a decent one, about a month and a half long, with several successful defenses on Raw and SmackDown. And aside from his early Job Squad stuff and his hardcore title runs, this is Al's probably his WWE highlight with the European title. He's a B tier champ. Right. Next up is William Regal. He had a record-tying 4 reigns with the European title, and second only to British Bulldog on days held. Regal is most definitely on the European title Mount Rushmore. Tons of fantastic, clean title defenses for him as well through his 4 runs as champ. William Regal is an S-tier European champion. Crash Holly. Crash had a real quick one-day title run, getting an upset win over Regal for the belt at Rebellion in Sheffield, England, to pop that crowd, even if he did have to drop it right back to Regal when they landed back in the States the very next day. Hey, at least he won the title legitimately, which is more than you can say for an alarming number of guys on this list. I loved Crash. I'm going to give him C tier. Alright, next up, Test. Test had a great run with the belt. One-time champion, but his run was probably the most dominant one to date. A bunch of title defenses on Raw, SmackDown, and Heat. All a bunch of clean wins. Sans one match with Triple H. And Test is an A-tier European champion. Yeah, one of the brightest spots in Test's career run with the European title. Next up is Matt Hardy. 4-month run. Defenses across all the shows. Amazing run for Matt. Proved he could entertain. And he could hang solo just as well as he could tag with Jeff. One of the longest reigns, one of the best. Matt just misses S tier for me, and we're going to put him in A. Hurricane. I love Shane Helms, and the Hurricane was super over here, but in the 2 months Hurricane held the Euro title, he only had a handful of defenses, and his only wins were against Spike Dudley. Not the greatest of achievements. I mean, I'm sorry, Spike. The Hurricane, at least, as far as being Euro champ goes, is a C tier. Bradshaw. Super short reign. Transitional champion from Hurricane to Christian. Why Christian couldn't have just dethroned Hurricane himself, I don't know. To add to the confusion, Christian's win wasn't even televised. Nothing against Bradshaw. He did defend the belt once against Chris Kanyon in an okay match, but his reign just feels pointless. Bradshaw is a C-tier European champion. Next up is Christian. In his 3 months as European champion and his only reign, he became one of the greatest to ever carry the belt. He went on to defend against and defeat a large list of names, several of them former European champions. He did what I talked about earlier with Matt Hardy doing, and established himself as a capable single star, but to an even greater extent. Christian is an S-tier European champion, taking his spot on the European title Mount Rushmore. Diamond Dallas Page. Even the legend DDP got a run with the European title. The only singles title he would ever hold in the WWE, I believe. It was a good almost 2-month run. His only run. The highlight and maybe the apex of the European title as a whole is DDP's defense versus Christian at WrestleMania X8. Great match. DDP is a very solid A-tier European champion. Alright, Spike Dudley. Now, while Spike was holding this belt, I think is when the name change happened at WWE, and also it was very apparent that WWE had lost all interest in continuing to carry the European title as an active championship. Spike got a single month reign that included 2 great title defenses against Goldust on Raw, and one against Regal in England at Insurrection 2002. They loved putting the small, spunky guys over Regal in his homeland. I think those kind of guys are really over there too. I know I dumped on Spike earlier, but he's okay. And so is his reign. Spike is a B tier European champion. And finally we have our last 2 champs. Jeff Hardy. Now, look, you can barely count Jeff Hardy's reign as an actual reign. He held the belt for almost 2 weeks with 1 actual title defense. But really, the title was on its death knell. It was over. And these are your final 2 champs, Jeff Hardy and RVD. The title was it was unified with the Intercontinental Championship and a title for title match with RVD. And I'm going to put both of these guys pretty much together in the B tier because, you know, you really can't fault them for not having longer runs with the belt, and they're some of the biggest names in wrestling history that add to look at this, man. Look at this list of names here. The European title is one of my favorites of all time. Beautiful strap, and I'm surprised that they've never brought it back because the lineage is rough at times, but overall it's pretty good. I mean, I'm a big fan of the European Championship. Hope you guys enjoyed this tier list video. If there's anything that you don't agree with, you would do differently, let me know in the comments. Please, thank you very much. If you enjoyed, give me a thumbs up, subscribe so you don't miss any of these tier lists in the future. And until next time, guys, take it easy.